Yes.
Kid takes the place every weekend, so 8 times a year or something. Makes sense to me.
Know how to classify it? Then why do you care?
Hello, yeah. We're going to get started in 1 minute, and I apologize for being a little late this morning. Give us just 1 more minute, thanks.
Yes. That's a huge thing, right? I mean, savings and cost and just.
So Inglewood is just the Rams, or is it
Yeah.
just?
No. And now it's gonna be the Chargers as well.
Oh, they're gonna be there as well.
Yeah,
Oh, that makes sense.
they announced, they moved out of San Diego this year.
Yeah.
Started.
Aren't they playing in a
Carson. It's a soccer, or the LA Galaxy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, they do need it.
The
They
NFL,
do need
the
it.
original.
We do need more
There was a
colleges.
push to bring the Chargers and the Raiders to Carson.
Oh, that really isn't even
Chargers leading the way.
a discussion.
I think
You
that
know,
was
I
just
think
a
the
smoke
funniest
screen for the Rams to get their deal. Because that was
You got a JC.
deal done.
And I think
They
the
transfer
Raiders
into
got that deal too. I think they're good.
four-year
Yeah.
college.
Oh, I think so.
I think they got the money.
I'm a proud junior college graduate. But no one knows, you know, it's like.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for coming today. Looks like we have a full house. I'm calling the California Building Standards Commission meeting to order. It is 10:09 on December 12th, 2017. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Secretary Badger?
I'm sorry?
Oh, we'll have to stop. We froze? Okay.
Okay, we have to hang on for 1 second. Yeah, having some technical issues. All right, we're going to hold. We're having some technical difficulty here for a few minutes, so we're able to do the captioning. So if everyone can just stand by.
How many flights back home were there to San Diego, from Sacramento? Yeah, or there are a lot, because I'm sure we're gonna end early, so.
Oh, I didn't even bother to look.
You guys usually, what time do you usually schedule? 5 or?
Usually around.
All right, I think we're going to resume. Okay, Pam, let's try calling the roll again.
Secretary Badger,
Here?
Commissioner Barthman. Commissioner Booth. Commissioner Klossbuckner. Commissioner Mickelton.
Here.
Commissioner Sasaki.
Here.
Commissioner Winkle.
Here.
Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Santillan. Commissioner Allegre.
Here?
Okay,
We have
do
quorum.
have a quorum. And Commissioner Patel has 2 daughters graduating from college, so he is at a very important ceremony today. Yeah, indeed. Okay, I've asked Commissioner Winkle to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Before we get underway, I just want to mention a couple of things this morning. We just learned of the tragic death of the mayor of San Francisco, Mayor Lee, who passed away in the early hours today. We don't have any of the details, but he will be sadly missed. He was a great champion of his city and the working people of his city. So just want to mention our condolences to his families and his family and to the people of San Francisco. Also, once again, we're reminded of the difficulties of our water, air, our weather, our climate change with the burning of Southern California. The Santa Barbara Ventura fire is about 20% contained. They made some great headway yesterday. But the Santa Ana winds are blowing through the weekend, sadly. Again, it's a very fierce, historically fierce weather system that is attributed to this. And the San Diego fire, thankfully, fires are at about 92% contained. So our thoughts with all of the impacted people and animals, and much thanks to the very hardworking the responders and firefighters. My colleagues at OES have just been working absolutely overtime and doing amazing things, as well as my colleagues at Cal Fire. So many thanks to all of them, and hopefully we'll get a break this coming next few days with the Santa Ana winds and get on top of them all. So I just wanted to mention a few things before we got underway. Okay, I would like to remind the public to please complete a request to speak form. They're the manila colored form. They're back in the back on the table, I guess buff colored. And please turn them into one of the CBSC staff members should you want to speak. The teleconference phone number is provided on the front of the agenda, and the instructions are provided on the back page of the agenda. I will now read those instructions. Please bear with me, they're a little long. All callers will begin in listen-only mode. If you wish to make a comment on a specific agenda item, please listen for the commission chair, myself, to ask for any comments from the public. At that time, please place yourself into the queue by pressing 1 and then 0 on your keypad. I will take any comments from participants in the audience first and then move on to the participants who are on the phone. Excuse me. When you press 1 and then 0, you will be notified when the speaker is ready for your question. To withdraw your question, press 1 and then 0. When it is your turn to comment, you will hear, "Please ask your question after the tone." A tone will sound, and the caller is now in the talk mode. I will continue through the call queue until there are no questions remaining. The commission will then proceed to the next agenda item. Please note, refrain from pressing 1 and 0 multiple times. Doing this toggles your position in and out of the call queue. Press 1 and 0 only once and wait for your notification to speak. Okay. Agenda item 2 is review and approval of the October 17th, 2017 meeting minutes. Commissioners, do you have any comments regarding the October meeting minutes? Eric? Okay. No, we're good? Okay. I will entertain a motion then on the October 17th, 2017 meeting minutes. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Winkle, second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the October 17th, 2017 meeting minutes will be accepted without amendment. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none, we will now call the roll.
Commissioner Barthman? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Commissioner Klaus Buckner? Yes. Commissioner Mickelton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sasaki? Aye. Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan? Yes. Commissioner Legray?
Okay, thank you, Pam. The vote is unanimous. Moving on to agenda item number 3. This is the portion of the agenda for comments from the public on issues that are not on the agenda. Comments regarding items not on this agenda may be briefly discussed, but no action may be taken by the commission. At this time, I'd like to remind the public who are on the phone and wish to speak on item 3 to put yourself in the queue now by pressing 1 and then 0. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to address us on an item that is not currently on the agenda today? Okay, seeing none, could we check the phones, please?
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, wait a minute, lost my place, sorry. That concludes item number 3. Thank you for your, anyway, we don't have any comments, so moving on to item 4. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We have the executive director's report and overview. Mia, would you like to give the commission your report?
Okay. Just a few items this morning. Today you're going to hear from 3 state agencies requesting approval of their final rulemakings to make the exterior elevated element emergency regulations permanent in the code. Additionally, as part of that process, the Building Standards Commission was required to submit a legislative report pursuant to Senate Bill 465. And I'm pleased to announce that yesterday we submitted that report, so it is early to the legislature. We were able to do that because at the October meeting, the EEE subcommittee provided their recommendations, and the Building Standards Commission staff incorporated those recommendations into a report they've been assembling for the last several months. And that report was reviewed by the subcommittee and then additionally by the Department of General Services and was submitted to the legislature yesterday. The report is available on our website, in addition on DGS's website. So if you need access to that, I can lead you to that report. As a result of that, the Building Standards Commission will be working with several other state agencies, HCD, DSA, and the State Fire Marshal, to conduct workshops over the next few months to incorporate and research and develop regs in response to those recommendations, but additionally in response to many of the public comments that were provided during the emergency certifying rulemaking. And I won't go into detail because I know Gary will be going over that a little bit. Also, I wanted to talk about a little bit the triennial that we're starting. So we had our coordinating council last month, and the state agencies are beginning their workshops to develop regs. And a very important part of the new triennial is every year we go out and solicit for code advisory committee members. So we issued an information bulletin, which is 1703, on November 30th, and that announced the calling for applications for the code advisory committees. That application window is open until January 5th. Every 3 years, we have 6 code advisory committees, and we reconstitute those members. And each code advisory committee has roughly 9 members. So we're looking for a number around 54 members that we select every 3 years. The important part of this is, and this is unique to the Building Standards Commission process, is there are representatives from the public, the building design professionals. Am I going slow enough, Mike? The construction industry, access folks, local government officials, fire officials, and then other affected parties. And they play an important role. Excuse me, I lost my place too. The purpose is they review all of the proposed regulations by the state agencies and make recommendations to the commission, and the state agencies have an opportunity to review those recommendations and modify their proposed regs prior to the public comment period. Let me tell you a little bit about the selection process. Is after the applications are submitted to our office, and again, the due date is January 5th. The staff looks at those applications and assembles them for what we have. The subcommittee of this commission is the Code Adoption Committee. It's comprised of Ellie, if you don't remember. It's been a while. Jim and Peter Santian, Mr. Barthman, I'm sorry, and Raj, who's not here today. And they will review those applications at a subcommittee meeting, and then the nominations are presented to the commission in April, and the 54 or so members are selected at that time. So
It's been a couple years.
it's been,
Yeah.
yeah.
Slacking 3 years ago, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think slacking's in your
No,
vocabulary.
no.
I remember you all.
We, yeah. We don't utilize that subcommittee very often, so, yeah. So, and then, like I said, those committee members will be announced, and then the committees will convene over the summer, and they will review the proposed regulations. So that all happens this summer. We're scheduled to be announced. We haven't got that far yet. The last item on my overview is the Building Standards Commission has been working with Commissioner Booth and Commissioner Barthman on the strategic plan, and Mike has been working with them, so I'm going to have you do a brief overview.
Thank you, Mia. This is Michael Neerman with the Building Standards Commission. Commissioner, as Mia mentioned, Commissioner Barthman and Commissioner Booth have been assisting us in updating the Building Standards Commission strategic plan. This is an annual process. We go through every 3 years, review the plan, update, obviously, commissioner names as needed, other things that have occurred, if there are legislative changes, law changes, regulatory changes that impact the commission, we'll update that information. And then additionally, this time around, we were asking the commissioners with their experience and background to review and give us suggestions and recommendations related to our vision and mission statements. They've been the same for quite a long time, and we thought maybe time for an update. So we'll be meeting, we haven't scheduled an actual meeting yet, but we'll be meeting in January at some point, teleconference-wise, to discuss next steps in the development of this strategic plan. And then we'll be looking for likely the April commission meeting to present the updated strategic plan to the body of the commission. And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be in good shape. I'd like to thank the commissioners for the input on that, too.
All right, that's all I have. If you have any questions of Mike and I, we're available.
Okay, this item's open for commissioners' discussion, and I'd like to remind at this time for folks to get in the queue on the phone. Any discussion about the executive director's report? Okay, seeing none, would you please check the phone?
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to item number 5A, 5B, and 5C. They are similar in nature. 3 state agencies are requesting certification of compliance and permanent approval of the emergency building standards pertaining to exterior elevated elements in the 2016 California Building Code and the California Existing Building Code. These emergencies were first approved by the Commission January 27, 2017. Pursuant to the Administrative Procedure Act, emergency regulations are effective for only 180 days. 2 readoptions may be approved, each for the period of 90 days. During the June 20th and October 17th Commission meetings, the Commission approved readoption of the emergencies, allowing the state agencies additional time to complete the certifying rulemaking process. We will first hear Agenda Item 5A, presented by the Building Standards Commission. Good morning.
Good morning, Secretary Badger, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission. My name is Gary Fabian. I'm an on-staff associate architect with the Building Standards Commission. And before you today are the results of the certifying rulemaking processes for the emergency regulations for 3 state agencies concerning the exterior elevated elements. I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee, so I hope I can keep it at a reasonable pace.
Michael, why don't you go over there and take that cup of coffee away?
For context, BSC staff will provide an overview, and then our partner agencies will present their own requests along with any details that they wish to fill in the blanks. Okay. BSC is requesting your approval to permanently adopt emergency regulations filed as BSC EF 01/17, which amend the California Building Code, Part 2, Title 24, California Code of Regulations, and California Existing Building Code, Part 10, Title 24, California Code of Regulations, as amended during the certifying rulemaking process. We'll revisit that thought in just a moment. The emergency regulations modified sections of these codes specific to the enhancement of design, construction, and inspection for exterior elevated elements for specified non-residential buildings per Health and Safety Code 18934.5, and includes provisions in Chapters 1, 16, 20, and 23 of Part 2 and Chapter 1 of Part 10. We now seek to make these regulations permanent. The emergency regulations were primarily based on an early draft edition of the 2018 International Building Code, our model, and the companion 2018 International Existing Building Code. During the certifying process, BSC conducted a 45-day public comment period from September 8th through October 23rd of this year, receiving a number of comments. Due to the nature of the comments, any substantive changes would have necessitated an additional 45-day comment period and likely stakeholder input. Because we are operating under the time constraints of the certifying rulemaking process, CBSC would like to consider these comments, but in a future rulemaking cycle. This will afford enough time to conduct pre-cycle workshops and code advisory committee review and do it properly. Note that we do plan to hold workshop in early 2018 to vet submitted comments having merit. We already have an agenda started. This action may result in amendments being proposed for the 2019 California codes. It's the next triennial edition. Also during that period, the Commission's EEE subcommittee presented recommendations for further actions of the agencies, as Mia alluded to a moment ago. Upon review, we concluded that there was not time to develop additional measures during the certifying process. So in similar fashion as with the public comments, we opted not to incorporate at this time any of those recommendations. Additionally, during that same 45-day comment period, though, ICC published the final version, 2018 IBC and IEBC, containing the final language that was non-substantially different than that of their draft language that we had used for the emergency development. Thus, we commented to our own package and subsequently opened a 15-day comment period so that California's permanent language would be identical to that of the model codes. We accepted our own 45-day comments to align the text with model codes. The 15-day period, conducted from November 2 to November 17 of this year, yielded one public comment, which was in essence a resubmission of a 45-day comment and did not address the substance of the proposed 15-day language that included only the text update to match the model codes. Summarizing the history of development of these measures, the finding of emergency and the emergency regulations were approved January 27 of this year by this commission, effective upon filing with Secretary of State on January 30. The regulations were originally set to expire July 29, then subsequently reset to expire October 27 under the first readoption, and again under a second readoption, which has an expiration date of January 26th of 2018. All so that we could conduct matters associated with the certifying rulemaking in order to make the emergency regulations permanent. BSC has proceeded with diligence in the pursuit of completion of the certifying rulemaking process, including, number one, consideration of submitted public comments, number two, determination if additional edits to the measures are necessary, and if so, making those edits, and number three, finalization of the rulemaking documents so the Commission can take action at today's meeting. In summary, pursuant to Health and Safety Code 18909, 18930, and to Government Code sections 11346.2 through 11347.3, the BSC staff request your approval for the permanent adoption of regulations of BSC EF 01/17 emergency rulemaking that was approved by this commission on January 27 of this year, as amended during the certification process. I am happy now to entertain questions and comments that you have.
Okay, Gary, thank you for the overview of the proposal. Item 5A is now open for the commissioners' discussion. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioner Winkle, if I understand correctly, there was a modification made to the language that was the original emergency related to the precise language that came out of the 2018 international codes. Is that correct? And that's a two-part question. One, is that the only change? Or is that true? And two, is that the only change?
Yes, there were minor grammatical changes that were made in order to align California with the model, such as commas and singular versus plural on probably 5 of the provision items.
Were there any other changes?
No other changes.
Are there any other questions of Gary? Yes.
Commissioner Santillan, Gary,
help me understand the comments that were received, and because of time constraints, you're not going to entertain them at this time. Are those kept on file, and when the rulemaking process starts again, you start with those, or the stakeholders have to resubmit those for consideration?
The workshops will be the initial platform to launch, for the public to launch their comments, relaunch them, I would say, if they had submitted previously. But we already have an agenda formulated for those workshops that would kind of kickstart that process. So yes, anything that we receive during the 45 and the 15-day period during certifying is in the rulemaking file and is duly noted and housed within that. We developed our agenda from that input.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on 5A? Okay, seeing none, do we have any questions from the public on item 5A? No cards have been submitted, so at this time, I'd like to have people queue up. I should have mentioned it before I asked for public comment here. Alex, why don't you check the phones?
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public comment portion. Thank you, Gary. I will turn 5A back over to the commissioners and entertain a motion at this time to consider the California Building Standards Commission's request to approve the certification of compliance and permanent approval of emergency building standards pertaining to exterior elevated elements in the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2, and the 2016 California Existing Building Code, Part 10. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Sasaki move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Winkle, second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve 5A, Agenda 5A. I won't go through repeating it all this time. Is there any further discussion by the commission at this time? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll, Pam.
Commissioner Barthman?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth? Commissioner Klossbuckner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan?
Yes.
Commissioner Alegre?
Okay, thank you. The vote is unanimous. Next on the agenda is item 5B. Will a representative from the Department of Housing and Community Development please come forward and present item 5B? A request to approve the certification of compliance and permanent approval of emergency building standards pertaining to exterior elevated elements in the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2, and 2016 California Existing Building Code, Part 10. Please introduce yourself and provide us your overview.
I'm Emily Withers. Am I on the speaker? I think I am.
Are you, yeah, I think it needs to be a little bit closer. Yeah, we have trouble with that middle mic for some reason.
Good morning, Madam Secretary and Commissioners. I'm Emily Withers. I'm Codes and Standards Administrator 2 for the Department of Housing and Community Development. I would like to thank Gary Fabian for his comprehensive discussion of the emergency regulations related to exterior elevated elements, and will not be repeating the same information since all HCD activities were coordinated with BSC or CBSC. HCD requests approval for permanent adoption of emergency regulations filed as HCD EF 01/17, which amend the 2016 California Building Code and the 2016 California Existing Building Code, as amended during the certifying rulemaking process. These emergency regulations, based on draft versions of the 2018 model codes, are specific to the enhancement of design, construction, inspection, and maintenance of exterior elevated elements for residential buildings, and includes sections in chapters 1, 16, and 23 of the California Building Code and Chapter 1 of the California Existing Building Code. As noted by Gary, we conducted a 45-day public comment period and a 15-day public comment period. We received the same comments as the CBSC, made the same modifications, and coordinated with CBSC before the final submittals. HCD will continue evaluating the comments received during the public comment periods and will attend the CBSC workshops in early 2018, and may hold another workshop to specifically address the application of these standards to residential occupancies. This may result in amendments being proposed for the 2019 California Building Code, 2019 California Existing Building Code, and potentially the 2019 California Residential Code. HCD has issued Information Bulletin 2017-01 informing local code enforcement agencies, third-party agencies for factory-built housing and other interested parties of the emergency regulations. Supplements to IB 2017-01 were issued after the first and second readoption. Another supplement will be issued if the regulations are permanently approved. We thank the chair and the commissioners for their review of our certification and request approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Emily. 5B is now open for the commissioners' discussion. No questions, comments? Okay. We'll now take comments from members of the public. I'd like to remind those now to be queuing up on the phone. We'll now take members of the public here on item 5B at this time. I have no cards. Anyone wanting to discuss 5B? Okay. Alex, let's try the phones.
You have one question remaining.
Hello, please state your name.
Hi, this is Jackie Donahue, and I'm the mother of Ashley Donahue, and the aunt of Olivia Burke, who died in the Berkeley balcony collapse. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work and what you've done and for the changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them greatly, and we continue to give you our condolences. Are there any other comments on the phone?
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public comment portion. I will turn item 5B back over to the commissioners and entertain a motion at this time to consider the Department of Housing and Community Development's request to approve. Okay, is there a second? It has been moved and seconded to approve item 5B. Pam, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barthman? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Commissioner Klaas-Buckner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickelton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan? Yes. Commissioner Alegre?
Yes.
Thank you, Pam. The vote is unanimous. Next on the agenda is thank you, Emily, is item 5C. Will a representative from the Division of State Architect please come forward and present item 5C, a request to approve the certification of compliance and permanent approval of emergency building standards pertaining to exterior elevated elements in the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2, and the 2016 California Existing Building Code, Part 10. Good morning.
Good morning. Excuse me, I'm going to try this end microphone here.
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just speak
Thank you.
directly
Good morning.
into the mic.
Sorry?
I said just speak directly into the mic.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Secretary and Commissioners. My name is Diane Gould. I'm a supervising structural engineer with the Codes and Standards Unit for the Division of the State Architect Structural Safety Section. For your consideration today, as you're aware, we have the certifying rulemaking packages for emergency regulations for the 3 state agencies, 2 of which have gone before me now, BSC, HCD, and DSA. These regulations pertain to exterior elevated elements. BSC has already provided you an overview of the history and activities regarding the progress of these regulations, and HCD has also provided a recap and some additional details. So in the interest of time, I'm going to try not to reiterate too much of what has already been presented to you. DSA is here today to request your approval to permanently adopt the emergency regulations filed as DSA-SS/CC EF01-17, which amend the California Building Code, Part 2, Title 24, and the California Existing Building Code, Part 10, Title 24, as amended during the certifying rulemaking process. These emergency regulations modified sections of these codes specific to the enhancement of design, construction, and inspection for exterior elevated elements for specified public school and essential services buildings for which DSA has authority, and include provisions in chapters 1, 16, 16A, and 23 of Part 2, and Chapter 1 of Part 10. We now seek to make these regulations permanent. DSA has worked together with BSC and HCD in completing the necessary certifying rulemaking activities, including the 45-day public comment period conducted simultaneously by BSC, HCD, and DSA, as well as a subsequent 15-day public comment period as detailed by Mr. Fabian, in order to seek permanent adoption of these emergency provisions. Our intent in seeking the emergency provisions and now permanent adoption was to bring forward into the current California Building Code provisions pertaining to design, construction, and inspection of exterior elevated elements that have been published in the 2018 IBC and IEBC, which will serve as the model code for the 2019 CBC. As Mr. Fabian pointed out, BSC, HCD, and DSA received many comments during the 45-day public comment period, as well as recommendations from the Commission's Exterior Elevated Elements Subcommittee that were presented during the October 2017 meeting. If DSA had acted to propose changing the regulatory language in response to these comments, that would have amounted to a substantive change, which would have then necessitated an additional 45-day comment period and stakeholder input. As DSA has noted in our final statement of reasons, because we are operating under the time constraints of the certifying rulemaking process and wish to complete the process before the final expiration of the emergency provisions in January 2018, DSA intends to evaluate and consider the comments we received from both the public and the subcommittee in a future rulemaking cycle, as the presenters before me have also mentioned. This we believe will afford enough time to conduct the necessary pre-cycle workshops and code advisory committees review when substantive, and code advisory committee review that is needed when substantive changes are proposed. DSA also plans to attend the workshop in January mentioned, along with BSC and HCD, to evaluate and consider these comments and recommendations. Also, as Mr. Fabian noted, we did conduct a 15-day public comment period along with BSC and HCD in order to make non-substantive changes intended to align our proposed language with the now published IBC and IEBC provisions. This was needed because our original emergency provisions were based upon an unpublished draft language. And just as a side comment, Commissioner Winkle, the only difference for the most part, as mentioned, BSC, HCD, and DSA received pretty much identical comments or very similar comments from all our commenters during the 45-day comment period. DSA had one additional typo, if you want to call it. We had an extra B. It was the provisions talking about inspection of the waterproofing system. And in fact, I think it was caught at the January meeting when the emergency provisions were adopted, but somehow in our tracking of the document, the extra B showed up. So DSA's 15-day package has that revision, but again, the work that was done in that 15-day public comment period is aligning that language with the published IEBC and IBC language, because it doesn't say B, not B. And we can go into further detail with that later, but I just wanted to make a note of that. So in summary, pursuant to Health and Safety Code 18930 and Government Code Section 11346.2 through 11347.3, DSA respectfully requests your approval for the permanent adoption of regulations of our DSA-SS/CC EF 01-17 emergency rulemaking that was approved by this commission on January 27th, 2017, as amended during this certification process. And I'd be happy to address any further comments or questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Diane, for the overview of the proposal. 5C is now open for the commissioners' discussion. Okay. Seeing none, we'll now take public comments on agenda item 5C, and will those on the phone please put yourself in a queue. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address this today? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone on the phone, Alex?
You have one question remaining.
Okay, hello? Is there anyone on the phone? Is your phone on mute? Let's try, is there another way to boot it again?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Now we can, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was on mute. Thank you, Mia. This is Dennis Richardson with American Wood Council, and I just want to thank the Commission for considering this and following through to make these code changes permanent, and we look forward to participating in the future workshops. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your participation. We appreciate it very much. Okay, we'll now move on to the commission. Oh, Diane, thank you very much. That concludes the public comment portion. I will turn item 5C back over to the commissioners and entertain a motion at this time to consider the Division of State Architects' request to approve the certification of compliance and permanent approval of emergency building standards pertaining to exterior elevated elements in the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2, and the 2016 California Existing Building Code, Part 10. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Winkle, move approval.
Thank you.
Nickerton, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 5C. Is there any further discussion at this time? Okay, seeing none, Pam, would you like to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Barthman? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Commissioner Klaus-Buckner? Yes. Commissioner Mickelton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan? Commissioner Alegre?
Okay, thank you, Pam. The vote is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is item 6A. The California Building Standards Commission is requesting a change without regulatory effect to amend Chapter 31, Sections 3109.4 through 3109.6 of the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2 of Title 24, for consistency with the Swimming Pool Safety Act, recently amended by SB 442. CBSC is required to reprint the Swimming Pool Safety Act pursuant to the Health and Safety Code Section 18942 B. And we have Alex here to present. Would you like to state your name and present the item?
Yes. Good day, Madam Chair.
Double duty today.
Yeah. Good day, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name's Alexander Hunter, Associate Governmental Program Analyst with the California Building Standards Commission. And as the Chair stated, we are proposing a change without regulatory effect to the 2016 California Building Code, Chapter 31, Sections 3109.4.4 through 3109.6. These changes are based on the enactment of SB 442, Chapter 670, Statutes of 2017, which becomes effective January 1, 2018. And this bill amends the Swimming Pool Safety Act, the text of which is required to be published in Title 24 pursuant to building standards law. Additionally, other non-substantive corrections have been made to several authority and reference citations. And due to the bill's prompt effective date of January 1, 2018, gives us reason to propose this change without regulatory effect to align the current version of Title 24 with the updates to statute. The proposed change meets the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act, Building Standards Law, as well as the California Administrative Code, Section 1-421, Items 5 and 6, for a change without regulatory effect. The criteria includes changing an authority or reference citation for a regulation and making a regulatory provision consistent with a changed California statute if both of the following conditions are met. 1, the regulatory provision is inconsistent with and superseded by the changed statute, and 2, the state adopting agency or state proposing agency has no discretion to adopt a change which differs in substance than from the one chosen. This concludes my overview of the proposal. I respectfully request your approval of the proposed change without regulatory effect and would be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Well done, Alex. Thank you. We will now take comments from, I'm sorry, this item is open for the Commissioner's discussion. Okay, seeing none, we'll now take comments from the public on item 6A, and will those please on the telephone queue up? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask questions or comments about item 6A? I'm sorry? Well, that's what my question is. Larry. Okay, seeing none. Can we check the phones? Alex can't check the phones.
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, I will now, that will now conclude the comments on, unless if we have any further comments, I guess, from Mr. Booth.
No, my comment was I just wondered if
Oh, wait, and ha, 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 ha. Oh, my goodness. I totally missed it, and I think my fellow commissioners missed that, too. Did you catch it, Mike? Mike didn't catch it. I wondered why your face turned red. It should have. Okay, with that frivolity behind us, we will now turn 6A back over to the commissioners, and I will entertain a motion at this time to consider the California Building Standards Commission change without regulatory effect to amend Chapter 31, Sections 3109.4 through 3109.6 of the 2016 California Building Code, Part 2. Do I have a motion? We thank Commissioner Booth. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 6A. Is there any further discussion at this time? Seeing none, Pam, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barthman? Yes. Commissioner Booth? Yes. Commissioner Kloss-Buckner? Yes. Commissioner Mickleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan? Yes. Commissioner Legray?
Thank you, Pam. The vote is unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda is item 6B. It is also a request to approve a change without regulatory effect to align with the recently amended Swimming Pool Safety Act. The California Building Standards Commission is requesting a change without regulatory effect to amend Appendix 5, Sections AV 100 through AV 100.9 of the 2016 California Residential Code, Part 2.5 of Title 24. Alex, would you please present item 6B to the commission?
Sure. So, yeah, not much difference here. Everything's done for the same reasons. It's just to align with SB 442, which we're required to republish the text of the Swimming Pool Safety Act in Title 24. We also reprint it in the residential code as well. So.
Okay, good. Are there any further questions of Alex on this item, which is item 6B? You're not wading in, Commissioner?
You took my line.
He's fast. You got to jump right in. Okay. We'll now turn to the public for any comment on item 6B, and those on the phone, please queue. Okay, seeing none, would we like to please check the phones?
You have 0 questions remaining.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public comment portion. I will turn item 6B back over to the commissioners and will entertain a motion at this time to consider the California Building Standards Commission's change without regulatory effect to amend Appendix 5, Section AV 100 through AV 100.9 of the 2016 California Residential Code Part 2.5 of Title 24. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Barthman, approval.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve item number 6B. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, Pam, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Barthman?
Yes.
Commissioner Booth?
Yes.
Commissioner Klossbeckner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickelton? Commissioner Sasaki?
Aye.
Commissioner Winkle?
Yes.
Commissioner Santillan? Commissioner Legray?
Okay, the vote is unanimous. Thank you very much, Pam. Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is any future actions or items for the commissioner to be taken up or agendized. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair?
I'm not sure if there's anybody here from the State Fire Marshal's office.
There
back
is somebody? Would you like to come forward?
No,
please?
I think if you can just hear me out.
Okay.
I got a very disturbing email yesterday from a friend who is a expert witness and a fire and life safety consultant who built himself a new house up in the Santa Rosa Urban Wildland Fire area. And his house burned down, and he thinks that he may have had trouble with some of the intumescent vents that he had installed. And this is anecdotal, so I'm not looking for trouble in that sense, but what I would hope or sort of urge the fire marshal or local fire officials to do is at some point as we get into the rulemaking cycle for the next round is if you could start surveying the performance of newly built houses using the current 7A standards and see if you can determine kind of whether they have done better or worse and whether there have been any identifiable failure modes that might need to generate some new code changes. So I think we're starting to get a population of houses that's big enough that we could look at performance. Could you come up here so we can get you on the record?
And once seated, if you could just please state your name and title, that would be really helpful. And you'll have to talk right directly into that mic. It doesn't function very well.
Okay. Deputy Crystal Sujeski from the Office of State Fire Marshal. We are currently having a WUI task force that is ongoing. And as you know, we did bring in some regulations in the intervening code cycle
Yes.
that was just approved in August. Going forward, we do have agenda items, garage doors, decks, opening protection, and within the state fire marshals, there's also damage inspection. I personally have been on the Mendocino, Santa Rosa, and the Northern California fires. We have teams now in Southern California collecting data, which is looking at those 7A requirements.
Great.
And matching them also up with the defensible space. So once we get that data and we have that collection, we will be presenting proposals for the next code cycle.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any other items for future agenda? Okay, seeing none, we probably will not have a meeting in January, but Mia will confirm that to the commission as well as to the public, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. Happy holidays, be safe out there, and we'll see you in the new year, believe it or not. Oh, I don't know, do we, sorry, you know what, maybe we need a motion to adjourn? Okay, we have to have a motion to adjourn, I got ahead of myself. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. We stand adjourned.
All right, dive in.
Yeah, dive right into that one.